Hello everyone, my name's Paul Ward and I am the head of ICT and digital, so I'm the IT guy. Have you tried restarting it? I want to talk about our approach to technology as an organisation. Very nice segue from John in terms of some of the work that we're doing around connected autonomous vehicles. But first of all, I wanted to explain our kind of strategic approach to the infrastructure that we're putting in. So this is the kind of, it's not the sexy stuff, it's not the sexy side of IT, if there is indeed a sexy side to IT. This is the, other than, company excluded, this is the kind of nuts and bolts that make a lot of stuff work. So just to talk about a little bit about our strategy, I'm not sure if that comes across great, but I think you're getting the slide deck. So we have two separate strategies. We have an internal IT strategy, which in your organisations you'll have an IT strategy talking about the computers you use and those sorts of things. We have split out our digital strategy away from that because we felt that it is something that's so important to the city that it needs its own focus, its own governance, and to be frank, the citizens of Coventry don't really care about our Windows 10 rollout, but they do care about fibre to the home and those sorts of things. So we've purposely kept them separate. So our digital Coventry strategy, which is on our website, we've had it a couple of years now, and there's 4 key themes in the strategy itself. So we have digital place, which is what I'll spend the majority of the time talking about today. It's about the infrastructure in the ground. So in other cities you might come across a smart city initiative. That's our version of smart cities, digital place, making sure we've got the right nuts, bolts, wires, fibre in the ground to make sure that people can come and innovate. And things like connected autonomous vehicle are a possibility. Digital customer inclusion, making sure that our citizens, our residents and our customers, so anyone coming to the city as well as the people that live here, have access to the right digital technology and the right digital experiences, and no one is excluded from that. Digital communities, so how do we work with or provide, again, opportunities within communities to think about doing things in a different way because of the internet era technology. So Good Gym, if anyone's heard of that, is a good example of that. In an internet-connected kind of community, people can sign up to Good Gym rather than paying a membership to a gym. And there's you can go and sign up and say, this person needs a little bit of garden clearing doing rather than a gym membership. So it's part of the whole social networking kind of internet era kind of technology kind of stuff. So we look to encourage that. And digital workforce. Now, this is a really interesting one because when we set out the digital strategy, this was where there's a big crossover between the digital strategy and our IT strategy because we thought about it purely from the workforce, our employees as Coventry City Council. But actually now, and I'll come on to talk about our fibre infrastructure in a moment, but actually this theme probably needs or will be, and it is being expanded to think about workforce in its wider sense in terms of people that live in Coventry, that maybe commute to work, the wider kind of economy aspects around the workforce within Coventry. So at the moment it's focusing internally for Coventry City Council, but I think actually because of where we are with that technology, it's worth expanding that out just to have a more of a kind of economic kind of jobs and growth kind of slant. So our real drive is about making sure we have a really solid digital infrastructure foundation, and that really starts with fibre. So apologies if this is a bit basic for people, but it is important to get this across. So the reason that fibre is so important is two reasons. One, it's faster, and the other is greener. So from a faster point of view, in Coventry we have already quite a lot of fibre in the ground. We have several hundred kilometres of fibre in the ground. We have a partnership with a company called City Fibre, and by the start of 2022, 99% of properties in Coventry will have full fibre connection, access to a full fibre connection for their internet. So that means that people will be able to access up to 900 megabits a second upload and download from their home, which is probably comparable to a lot of what you might have in your own offices at the moment. So that is really important to us. The reason why that is important to us, it goes to the workforce element I was just talking about, that actually, if people can have that level of internet connection at home, it doesn't just mean that they can stream iPlayer, Netflix and those sorts of things. It means that actually if they have the ability to work from home, from wherever you work, so laptops and those sorts of things, their experience is going to be better. And particularly for high bandwidth use, so where you might have people from the creative sector who are doing a lot of uploading of kind of films or audio and those sorts of things, it means they don't have to travel to a business park or a location to do that uploading. They can do it from home because they have the suitable amount of bandwidth and speed. Fibre does have a greater longevity in terms of it's not going to need to be upgraded because of greater kind of headroom in bandwidth. So effectively this is all about, you know, how much light and can we get down the fibre. With copper and the infrastructure's in the ground at the moment, there is definitely an upper ceiling in terms of the speed that you can get. Once the infrastructure is laid, then we're already talking about people having up to 900 megabits a second. That may well grow because the bit that constrains the speed is the technology that's on either end. So from the supplier end and your home router constrains the speed. So in terms of having to dig up roads, lay more infrastructure and those sorts of things, it's greater future-proofed. And from a greener point of view, fibre uses up to 12 times less energy than traditional copper to transmit data. So just from a base infrastructure point of view, you might walk down the street at the moment and go past the big green cabinets, and you can probably hear them whirring or screeching if you live near me at the moment, particularly when it rains. Virgin and BT should probably be a bit worried about that. But you can hear that they're obviously churning a lot of power. From a fibre point of view, it just takes less power to run that infrastructure. So it's really important to us that we kind of build upon our already quite advanced state from a fibre infrastructure point of view to make sure that every business and every home has access to this really essential piece of infrastructure, the same way that we talk about electricity or gas or water, those sorts of things, making sure that everyone has access to the right level of fibre. So building upon that, because talking about fibre isn't the most exciting thing in the world. So what does that actually mean? So two of the real use cases that we're looking at the moment and indeed are actively involved in are 5G, which you've probably heard about, which is the next generation of mobile phone technology, and sensors, or what's more commonly known as Internet of Things. So from a 5G point of view, Coventry, as part of the West Midlands Combined Authority, won a national competition from government for the Urban Connected Communities programme. So Birmingham, Wolverhampton and Coventry are actively involved with WM5G, which is the company that's running that programme, around how do we develop use cases across different industries for 5G technology. This is where it crosses over into John's element around connected autonomous vehicles. So there's already active work in Coventry at the moment, around 5G and the Connected Autonomous Vehicle Programme and the support that it gives. We also have some very big aspirations for the UK City of Culture. So 2021, big year, someone's coming up next to talk about that in a little bit more detail, but if you think about, because 5G gives so much more bandwidth, speed, all the stuff that I've just talked about from a fibre point of view, what does that mean from visitor experience? What does that mean from an augmented reality? So in terms of holding up an iPad, so you may have come across Pokemon Go or the Harry Potter Wizards thing. They're all augmented reality examples. If you talk about that, think about that on scale in terms of the cathedral in Coventry. We've had an augmented reality experience in the past where you can hold up a tablet and you can see what the cathedral was like before the Blitz. And experiences like that, and we're already talking to John and colleagues about in autonomous pods, what might augmented reality experiences might be possible because of the connectivity that we're putting into autonomous vehicles. So 5G is a big deal for us. We are actively working with WM5G and a number of mobile phone operators in that space. Excuse me. I'm okay. This is the last bit, I think. So we'll try and get there. So, sensors and Internet of Things. So, on top of 5G, on top of fibre and those sorts of things, we look to how can we use our digital infrastructure, so the fibre and other connectivity, to put sensors across the city to help us manage the city better. So we're already looking at some air quality sensors, which I appreciate is a hot topic and very relevant to the people in the room right now. But connecting those, providing an infrastructure where you don't have to, it doesn't take weeks and weeks and weeks to get the relevant infrastructure. Having the infrastructure there that we can move those around quite rapidly. Things like connected bins. We have some smart bins, so that rather than having to send out a lorry on a cyclical route, the bin will report back to say when it's full. We're doing some work around connected animal traps for our pest control officers. So rather than going out and checking animal traps, it'll trigger to say that this has been triggered and those sorts of things. There's a whole. You don't have to go very far. In fact, if you were to walk into PC World or even B&Q these days, from a smart technology point of view, from an Internet of Things point of view, it's kind of in your face in terms of the number of sensors that you can do from a smart home point of view. So we really looking to kind of support this and how it can help us better kind of run the city. But the key thing from this and from 5G is the data. In terms of what is that telling us, it's fantastic having all these sensors with lights blinking and all these other things going on and all the rest of it. But actually, the data that pulls back, what does that actually mean? So we're talking about with the connected autonomous vehicles and just wider actually, if we know that from the air sensors that are on our IoT network or just generally on our network, that a certain route is highly polluted, we can divert autonomous vehicles to another route. Away from that, or using the smarter routes to really help. So it's about that whole wider picture in terms of the technology that we've got. So we've got some really exciting plans. City of Culture is a big focal point for us, but actually the legacy of that and building it up strategically with that fibre base being in the ground, providing all the opportunities for the bells and whistles that 5G and Internet of Things will bring. So that's it from me.